So today we're obviously talking about the pros and the cons of wholesaling real estate. Now, if you are already wholesaling real estate, then you're going to want to stay to the very end of the video because I'm going to break down a bunch of valuable stuff. And if you've ever wanted to get into real estate and maybe you've looked into wholesaling real estate, then we're going to break everything down and really figure out whether or not wholesaling real estate is the right job or the right industry or right niche for you. So first and foremost, if you're not familiar with what wholesaling real estate even is, wholesaling is essentially just the art of getting a property or a house under contract below market value and then reassigning your contract with the seller to an end buyer for a little bit of arbitrage, right? And they call that the assignment fee. So with wholesaling, you're never actually buying the property, right? You're just getting it under contract and then you're assigning it to the end buyer, and the end buyer is the one that is actually going to take the property down, and they're either going to flip it or they're going to keep it as a rental property. So wholesaling's become widely popular over the last couple of years with social media. And you have people like Jerry Norton, Flipping Mastery TV. You have all kinds of different people that are talking about wholesaling real estate, right? They talk about a lot of other stuff as well, but you're probably familiar with a lot of the YouTube channels out there talking about wholesaling, okay? So again, it has become very popular and a lot of people want to do it. So much to the point that the NAR, the National Association of Realtors, has actually talked about trying to eliminate or ban wholesaling altogether. So just to clear a little bit of that up real quick, wholesaling is perfectly legal, I believe, in 49 out of all of the 50 states, and you do not need a real estate license, aka you do not need to be a realtor or a real estate agent to wholesale real estate, because you're just acting as the buyer, but then you're reassigning your rights to purchase a contract to the actual end buyer. Okay, so let's just go ahead and jump right into the pros and the cons of wholesaling real estate, okay? So if you haven't already, take just a quick minute and just go ahead and smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. And also, if you haven't already, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel and drop a comment down below what kind of videos you would like to see in the future. So in my humble opinion, one of the best things that I personally love about wholesaling real estate is the fact that you don't need any experience in the real estate industry. You also don't need a lot of money, and you really don't need any wisdom or knowledge right out of the gate. You also don't need any sort of licensing or anything like that. As we talked about a little while ago, wholesaling doesn't require you to be a realtor, meaning you don't have to go obtain your real estate license in whatever state you live in to wholesale real estate. So in my opinion, that is obviously the first main pro of wholesaling real estate. Going hand in hand with that is the fact that getting into wholesaling allows you to kind of get your feet wet in the real estate industry. And it really allows you to figure out whether real estate is a good fit for you, and then you can ultimately treat it like a stair, right? You can take that first step, you can get into wholesaling, and you can kind of treat it as a little bit of a stepping stone to go ahead and do much bigger things in the real estate industry. I mean, think about it. All you're doing all day is looking at real estate deals, right? And if you look at enough real estate deals, you start to learn a lot about real estate, okay? You're looking at the numbers of real estate. You're looking at what a property's valued at, and you're figuring out how do you get it below market value. And the only way to do that, obviously, is to know the ARV, right? That after repaired value of the property. You start calculating how much it'll cost to actually get it to that value, and so on and so forth. You're also learning the art of talking to sellers, right? You're talking to potential motivated sellers on a daily basis, which is going to open a ton of different doors for you in the long run, because the better you are at talking to people and the better you are at negotiating and things of that nature, the more better off you'll be in the real estate industry in the long run. One of the biggest things that we do is we're constantly building relationships with other wholesalers, with investors, with cash buyers, and with realtors to source our deals. So the more people that you know, you've all probably heard the saying before that your network will determine your net worth, right? So if you're out there all the time and you're talking to other people and you're building relationships with people, this is a phenomenal way to get your feet wet in the real estate industry. And then again, those relationships could lead to certain doors opening for you in the future as it pertains to the real estate industry. And who knows, maybe you eventually become like Grant Cardone or like Manny Koshbin or like one of these big people that you see that's either doing multifamily real estate or commercial real estate, or maybe you eventually become like a Ryan Serhant, right? Or a Josh Altman and you become a luxury real estate agent, or whatever the case is. There's just so many doors that could potentially open as a result of you just kind of diving headfirst into the real estate industry and really getting your feet wet and actually starting to learn everything that goes along with real estate. Because what I've learned over the years, and I've wholesaled probably anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 houses, is the more houses that I wholesale, the more confident I am, the more relationships that I build, the more I feel like at any given time I could just pick up the phone, call somebody, and I could literally just get a door to open out of the blue, right? So obviously a lot comes from establishing yourself as a wholesaler in that particular industry. Another really big pro is that you can earn a large amount of money in potentially a short amount of time. Now, obviously, I'm not guaranteeing that, and I'm certainly not saying that this is a get-rich-quick, because it most definitely isn't. However, you can do a lot in the wholesaling industry in terms of profit margin in a very short period of time, theoretically, right? Which, unlike most other industries out there and most other businesses out there, where it could take years and years and years to even make your money back that you initially invested, wholesaling, that's not really the case. I mean, you can get into the industry with basically no capital, and you can do things like driving for dollars, you can door knock, you can cold call, you can go on Facebook, you can do all sorts of different stuff. And I'll attach a couple of links in the description below of a couple of the cool applications that I like to use when sourcing my potential wholesale deals. But again, it doesn't cost a lot of money, right? So for a very minimal amount of money, I can potentially make a lot of money on my money, right? Which has a high return, right? There's a high rate of return on the wholesaling industry, which is obviously a really good thing, right? Because if you're somebody that maybe just wants to get into real estate, but you don't have a lot of money, maybe you have a lot of time, but not a lot of money, or vice versa, then this is potentially a really good opportunity for you to kind of dive into the industry and make potentially $5,000 or $10,000. I've seen a lot of new wholesalers make a heck of a lot more money than that, okay? But again, that would keep your expectations, reasonable, obviously, right? You never want to set extremely high expectations to where you're automatically setting yourself up for failure. But again, there is a lot of potential in the industry. And then you can ultimately take the money that you make and you can reinvest it back into marketing or things like that. You can reinvest it back into yourself to actually learn and obtain more knowledge and more wisdom about the industry. Or you can take it and you can invest it into real estate deals, right? You could buy rental properties. You could go out and you could become a flipper, right? You could start flipping properties and you could cherry pick the best deals that you're getting with your wholesaling business, which is something that we do, right? We're constantly wholesaling a ton of deals. And when we go actually flip properties or things like that, we're just cherry picking the best deals on a monthly basis with the best return. And we're taking those for ourselves, obviously, and flipping them. And you'll be able to do that the more money that you have and the more people that you know, right? You might even be able to get some hard money lenders in the future or some private money lenders, which we'll obviously talk about in another video, where you'll be able to actually go and flip properties and potentially make even more money. Again, it does depend obviously on your goal. And for a lot of people, I know that maybe they just want to wholesale 1 or 2 houses a month. They want to make an extra 5 or 10 or 15 grand a month. And that's a lot of money, right? That's like $100,000 to $200,000 potential $1,000 per year in additional income, right? Just wholesaling maybe a house or 2 a month, potentially, okay? So again, this is probably one of my favorite things when it comes to the wholesaling industry. So another big pro, and it kind of ties into what we just talked about, is say you're somebody who doesn't want to own rental properties, right? And you don't want to flip because you don't want to deal with the contractors and you don't want to deal with all the crap and you don't want to deal with like project management. And you also maybe don't want to deal with property management, right? What is beautiful about wholesaling is it is so dang simple, right? You're not really doing anything because you're never actually buying the house. So the simplicity of the business is kind of on another level. I mean, what other industry can you get into that you're not it isn't complicated, right? There's so many industries out there, I feel like, that are so gosh darn complicated, okay? So wholesaling is obviously not complicated, and it is one of the most simple business models to understand. Almost to the point where it is so simple, I feel like, that people overcomplicate it. Drop in the comment section down below what you think about that, but I really feel like people overcomplicate the wholesaling business, and they just, for whatever reason, think it's like super complicated, but it just simply is not. So let's talk about a couple of the cons of wholesaling now, okay? The moment you've all been waiting for, right? What, Austin, are the negatives of wholesaling real estate? There's obviously pros and there are cons with anything. So with wholesaling, one of my biggest cons, in my humble opinion, and again, this might not be a con for you, okay? So keep that in mind. But for me, one of the biggest cons is that it's kind of like a job, right? Every time you do a deal, then the deal's over. So yeah, I can make great money and I can make $5, $10, $15, or $20,000 on a deal. But the moment I do the deal's over, right? And then I've got to go find another deal and another deal after that and another deal after that, right? I've got to constantly be trading time essentially for money, just like an ordinary job. So essentially, it is a really, really high paying job, right? Which is obviously, depending on how you look at it, a potential pro. But for me, it's a bit of a con. And that'll tie right into with what I'm about to say right now, which is the fact that you're not obtaining any long-term real estate. So I'm at a point in my career where I want to start to own rental properties, right? I want to start to actually own long-term assets that will continue to pay me month after month after month, where my tenant is in the property constantly paying down my mortgage, and I'm reaping the benefits of owning that real estate. I'm getting the tax benefits, I'm getting all the write-offs that go along with that, I'm also gaining the appreciation, and I'm building long-term wealth. So for me, every time I wholesale a deal, I'm just like, man, that's another deal that I could have added to my portfolio, but now I'm not able to add it to my portfolio because instead of taking the long-term wealth, I chose to take the short-term cash, right? So for me, that is obviously a big con, but depending on how you look at it, that could also be a pro. Another con potentially, and it kind of goes with what we were just talking about, is the income can obviously be unpredictable, right? So, at the end of the day, this is obviously a business. This is something that you have to go out, you have to generate leads, right? And you have to convert the lead, aka the motivated seller, to a contract, right? You've got to get the property under contract. And depending on, how much marketing you're doing, depending on what you're doing, whether you're driving for dollars or you're cold calling or you're doing direct mail or you're doing bandit signs or whatever you're doing, right? And there's a million ways to do it, obviously. It can be a bit unpredictable, right? Especially in the beginning, I feel like. The more money that you make, and the more that you build it out, the more predictable it'll be, right? So for me, it's actually fairly predictable now, right? I have people that work for me, and every single month we consistently do, give or take, about the same number of deals. But I remember when I first got started in the industry, and it was not like that, right? It was not predictable. 1 month I might do 2 or 3 or 4 deals, and then the next month, I might do 0 deals, okay? So depending on how you look at that, that could obviously be a big con, right? If you're looking for predictable income, then this might not be the industry for you. But again, it just depends on where you are at in life. And, is this a side hustle for you? Is it a full-time gig for you? Are you doing anything else to basically create income or not? And that'll kind of determine if it'll be a pro or a con for you in the long run. But obviously, I kind of look at that as a con. Another big con that I see a lot of people make the mistake of, and honestly, this is why, in my opinion, wholesaling does get a bad rap from time to time, is because a lot of wholesalers will basically get a deal under contract and they won't be able to sell the contract to an end buyer before the due diligence period or the inspection period is up on the property, right? Which then will really irritate the seller, and ultimately you don't end up getting paid on all of the work that you just did. So that can be a big con, and that can also give wholesaling kind of a bad rap, right? So again, there are ways to kind of mitigate that, and we very, very, very rarely will ever cancel on a seller. If we commit to a deal, we're basically committed to that deal. And if we're going to lose money or for whatever reason we can't sell it to an end buyer, then we'll just end up taking it down ourselves and we'll keep it either as a rental property or we'll flip it and we'll put it back on the market and we'll sell it to somebody else, even if we like break even, right? Because we never want to ruin our reputation by canceling a deal on a seller right before potentially close the escrow after they've already gotten a moving company and they've already gotten their whole life kind of arranged to actually go ahead and sell the property, right? So I see this happen a lot with newer wholesalers because they don't really know how to run the numbers, right? They don't really know or understand how much work a property actually needs to get it to the number that a flipper or somebody's going to be looking at it through kind of that lens, right? So they ultimately get it under contract too high and they take it to the end buyer and the end buyer's like, hey, it's not a deal, right? It's too high, you need to get it cheaper. And they go back to the seller isn't willing to negotiate, and then they have to cancel on the contract, right? So you can avoid all of that by just learning the numbers, okay? And again, it's gonna take a little bit of time, and nobody's obviously perfect, but there are so many YouTube videos out there, and I've even made a lot of YouTube videos on my channel talking about like renovation costs and stuff like that, right? So you really want to learn the numbers and you really want to make sure that when you're getting a property under contract, you're getting it under contract at a fair price. Not only for the end buyer to still make money, but also for the seller to walk away and feel good about actually selling you their house, right? You always want it to be a win-win scenario. You never want either the buyer to get screwed over and lose money in the long run, or the seller to feel like they're kind of losing out and leaving a bunch of money on the table, right? You always want to make sure that you create win-win scenarios, and that's obviously what we do, right? So again, that could potentially be a big con when it comes to wholesaling real estate. So there you have it. There are some pros and some cons to wholesaling real estate. I hope you got a lot of value from the video, and I hope you stayed. If you did stay to the very end, please drop a comment in the comment section down below what you liked, what you didn't like. I would really appreciate it if you would smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. And if you've been on my channel for a long time, then I'm about to bring a lot more content to my channel, okay? So definitely stay tuned for that. I would really appreciate it. And again, I didn't obviously talk about everything in the video, so if there's anything that you feel like I left out, please go ahead and comment it down below, and I would love to make a video about that in particular, okay? So there you have it. I appreciate you watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.